All right, everybody, welcome again to your favorite podcast in the world. It's Say It, and I'm your host, Smiles. And I know you're wondering what we're doing outside. Yeah, today is it's an outdoor shoot by my director, who is somewhere in the background that you can't really see. He asked me to lie down on the floor inside this hot sun and wear this big hoodie to deliver this message to you. So I'm really hoping you pay attention because I have tried. Welcome again to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining. To everybody who has shared, everybody who has shown love, I really appreciate you guys. We've hit 30. We've hit about we've hit about 12 subscribers already, which I think is a lot. Even though I know right now I sound great, but at this point we have 10 subscribers. 12 subscribers. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching this. But let's get straight into it. All I can tell you today is this: so you're terrible at taking advice. You're just terrible at taking advice. But no worries. I'm here to help. That's all I came to do today, right? So before I start, let's do like a recap of the entire season. So throughout the season, we've actually tried and spent a lot of time talking about things you need to do to get started in your life, right? So whatever you want to do, whether it be business, an idea, a plan, we've talked through a lot of ideas and a lot of concepts that's all joined together to help you start beautifully and start quickly. Now, today we'll be doing, just the same thing, but this time I'm talking about a concept that everybody who's trying to start something should have experienced at least once in their life. And that's the concept of counsel, or what we like to call advice. But let me give you context for it. Now, I don't know if you've ever had to ask somebody for advice, like ask a friend, ask a mentor, a coach for advice. And then when you hear the advice in your brain, it sounds familiar. It doesn't sound strange or out of the blues. It sounds like something you would have thought of if given enough time, right? And to be honest, there is some truth in the feeling, because we are human beings in this generation who have been wired to ingest information. We just have, like, this generation, we are so information drunk. We have so much information, we consume so much information at an unprecedented rate, honestly. And based off of the things that we know and things that we come across every day, we generally have access to a lot of perspectives, a lot of opinions on a daily basis. If there is any system in the world that should be able to quantify an advice from any given circumstance, it should be the human brain, because we have enough information. We've heard too many stories. We have our parents sending us, messages on WhatsApp almost every week. We have our favorite Instagrammer giving us quotable quotes every week, sometimes even every day. You have me, your favorite podcaster, giving you podcast quotes and whatnot every week. So you have all it takes to come up with answers for yourself if you had to. But that's not really how it works at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, we are wired for community, which is why we never feel adequate enough to solve our own problems. And it's for a good reason, right? Now, I talk about the power of community a lot on this podcast, and it's because community is a powerful thing, right? So community is a place where you have at least these two things. You at least have people who share the same passions or dreams or goals, aspirations as you have, and you have people who have your interest in heart, right? Or your interest at heart. And those are like two key things that make you trusting enough to open up to share your experiences and to ask questions, right? The first community you get to experience in your life is your family, right? Your family is pretty much like a mini community of sorts. It's the smallest unit of society as defined. And it's important to have a family where you can actually call and say, oh, I have this issue, I have this problem, I need to be able to think through this. And then they assist and they help. So if you're a family member and you're not doing this for your people, you have to change this here, please. Let's all do better, right? But what happens when we get advice? What happens when we actually get advice? That is where the problem lies. We have so much information, so much so that if you decide not to take any single advice again until you die, I feel like you probably have enough to get going, right? And the problem is, we tend to stop at receiving advice. We tend to think, or we tend to assume that because you now know the solution, you have the solution. And that's not true. They're like two different things entirely. Now, this is like some biblical truth that kind of like applies to like everybody's daily life. So if you're a Christian, you probably already get this right? So in the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, there's this thing that is talked about a lot. This concept, you see it like in Moses, it repeats itself a lot in the book of Proverbs, even in the Psalms, right? And it's the concept of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, right? So there's knowledge, there is understanding, there's wisdom. And you will typically see, you know, Solomon in the book say, while you're getting knowledge, make sure you get understanding. While you get understanding, make sure you get wisdom, right? And this is because they're all three different things. Most times we are knowledge drunk in these generations. In this generation, we know a lot, right? Knowledge is not lacking, all right? If I feel like if Solomon was in our time, Solomon would be amazed at how much the average person knows. We know quite a lot. And you would think that because we know a lot, we have a better life, we have a more efficient life, we have a more thought out life. But honestly, it's not the case. It's not the case. It seems like the more information we've had as a generation, the more we have sunk into uncertainty, the more we have sunk into, like this degenerate state where we just feel like we are even more helpless than generations before us. It could be the information overload, but I mean, I'm not even here to like figure out why, but I'll tell you for a fact that there is one step further after knowledge, and that's where I think you really need to focus on when you get an advice. So what I'm about to tell you is how to actually deal with an advice when you get the advice. First step, when you are advised, take the advice. I know that sounds, duh, but how do you actually take advice? Take advice by actually trying it out. Yeah, you have to put it into practice. You have to actually take the advice, put it out there into the world and see if it works for you. See if it even works at all. See if there's any point in having the advice, right? That's a mistake that many of us make. We know a lot, but we know how to do so little, right? We know a lot, but we know how to do very little. We do not apply the things that we learn or the things that we know. In fact, sometimes you sit down and you meditate and some thoughts come to you, very, very impactful, very, very insightful thoughts, and you quickly rush to social media and you share these thoughts, yes? But that's the thing, you share it and you never for once think to apply that thing to your life. And it's sad really, right? With the wealth of information that we have in the world, we have so many people trying to fill up that library of information, but very, very little people trying to get something out of it. And it's sad. I don't want you to be like that this year. I don't want that for you this year. So here is how you actually take an advice, right? I'll give you a story for context, right? I have a friend who I was speaking to very recently, and okay, not really recently, sure. I have a friend who I was speaking to one time last year, and we were talking about an advice I gave her, right? So she had this whole, she called me one day and she was stressed about having too many things on her plate and she couldn't really like find out the time to do everything. And I said something strange but profound. I said, the things you do take only as much time as you actually give them. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to do something for an hour, you'll get done in an hour. Tell yourself, I'm going to do this for a day, you'll get it done in a day. You tell yourself, oh, I want to do this in a week. You'll be surprised that the amount of space you have will stretch to accommodate that task, whether it's big or whether it's small, right? And I think I learned from the book, and I think I learned it from a book somewhere, I can't remember anymore, but I told it to her, and for some reason, she's been doing it ever since, right? But guess what? The day we spoke, like a couple of weeks after that, we spoke and she told me, oh, this thing you told me, right, has been really helpful. Like I found out that it's been helping me like cope, blah, blah. And in that moment, I was stressed with work. I had so many things on my own plate, right? So what I realized is, the tip I'm about to share. First things first, take your advice. The advice you give your friends, it's the same advice that you need, all right? It's sad and it's strange, but it's just, I don't know why it happens that way. I can't really give you a reason why. But I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure you can understand what I'm about to say. You have a friend that has a problem. You can give your friend an advice for that same problem that would work, and you know that this advice is valuable. Or then when it comes to like you having the same problem, you just can't trust in yourself to give yourself that advice. I really don't know how that works. That should not be a thing. But guess what? It's a thing. So my point is, the next time you have a problem, I want you to isolate yourself from the problem and assume that your best friend is the person who has that problem. Whatever the situation is, just assume, I'm sure you have a best friend. If you don't have one, you should get one. But have a friend that you really care about And in your head, just close your eyes and imagine that your friend has that problem. So let's assume you have a problem with a relationship problem, right? For instance, with somebody, and you don't know how to go about it. One way to actually take your own advice is to take yourself, push yourself in that your friend, and then once you figure out, what you think is best for your friend, take that advice, right? Step number 2: when you hear advice on social media, try and try and put it into practice, right? I mean, yes, it takes a lot of time, it takes some effort, but don't be lazy. This is your life here. Try it out. Two things can happen: is that you get it right or you get it wrong. If you get it right, then great. If you get it wrong, even better, because now you've saved not just yourself, but you saved your future self, you've saved your generation, you've saved all your friends from bad advice. It's that simple, right? It's really that simple. I think the goal is to escape that realm of knowledge and try and actually get into understanding. And you can't understand until you apply. Knowledge really and understanding we can get for ourselves, but the Bible tells us that if you want wisdom, the quickest way to get wisdom, instead of having to go through years of experience and failing and rising, it's to ask God, right? So that's just on the side note. But like I said, guys, try and be better at taking advice this year. This year, take an advice. Trust me, one advice, you don't need 100. One advice can change your life. Take that one advice, put it into practice, just like I talked about in my last episode, right? It was just one advice I took, and now we have the entire podcast, right? So you don't need 2,000 advices. If the advice you need for this year is, eat healthy, and you take that one advice seriously for 365 days, your life will change. Do you understand? You don't need an entire. Just take one advice properly, and that'll be all. So thank you so much for coming here again. My eyes. I tried to open my eyes. I really hope to see you guys next week. Share this to your friends, share this to your family, and have a great one. Oh, good. All right. So that's about everything, Sha. Have a great Kiniko. Bye. Wait, hold on. I have to pray. Oh, dear God, thank you for everybody who's listening. I pray that you bless them as they listen. I pray that you bless them and help them be better at taking advice this year. Not that we're already great at giving advice. We're supposed to be better at taking advice, our own advice, and the advice of our friends. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys. That's about it. Have a great one. Bye.